Hello again, everybody. Surprise, surprise. We're back. Michael Martz, Jim Thomas. We're talking football, this time in podcast version. As you know, our first year we're on KFNS with the demise of local programming there. Uh, we've gone modern, Mike. We're on the podcast. We're able to figure out all the technical gyrations, which
Well,
wasn't
you are
easy, right?
you
But it's
got. I
great to
didn't
be
figure
back.
that. I had help. You know that.
What's that?
I can't plug a deal into the wall for crying out loud. You know I had help on this.
But yet, despite that, here we are. Mike, it's just fantastic. Obviously, I've known you for a long time, consider you a good friend. It's just great to be working with you and always exciting the start of another season. As a coach, what was opening day like for you, my man?
It was a very nervous time, not because you're concerned about what could go wrong or anything like that. You just are so anxious to get going. And you just want to see how you guys are going to play in that opener and the real deal kind of thing. So you think you're going to be a real good team, and of course you're prepared to come out of the gate guns blazing. But and we were pretty good usually in the first 3 years anyway, starting the season off.
Yeah, I think I want to say 6-0, 6-0, 6-0
One
or
was 8.
8-0 in
No,
there.
we went 3 years in a row with at least 6 wins, undefeated. Yeah, and then
Great out of the gate, Mike.
yeah.
So much to talk about in the off season. I mean, so much to that takes place. The off season is almost, not quite, almost as entertaining as what happens in the actual games. Let's start off with coaching changes. We know a lot of teams change coaches like they change socks, and this was a big year for coaching changes. 8, 1/4 of the league changed coaches. We'll go down real quick and highlight some of the ones that maybe catch your eye. Atlanta went with a recycled coach, Raheem Morris. He was 17-31 in 3 seasons at Tampa Bay. 33 when he was hired in Tampa Bay back in 2009. Carolina going with David Canales, 43, young coach, offensive mind, OC last year in Tampa Bay, helped develop Baker Mayfield, who had a career year. Now he's working with Bryce Young, try to work some magic there. Las Vegas, Antonio Pierce was an interim coach last year. They like what they saw from him when he stepped in for Josh McDaniels, so he's back. LA Chargers, one of the most interesting hires, Jim Harbaugh, coming off a national championship at Michigan, former NFL Coach of the Year, went to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. In New England, life without Bill Belichick, who we thought this day might never come. Gerard Mayo, age 38. Mike, some of these my oldest son is as old as some of these young coaches. Gerard Mayo, he's a former linebacker, first-round pick, team captain, spent his entire career with New England. Now he's New England's coach. In Seattle, the Seahawks replaced the oldest coach in the league, Pete Carroll, who was 72. They now have the youngest coach in the league, Mike McDonald, 37, was the Ravens defensive coordinator last couple of years. And obviously we all know the success of the Ravens defense speaks for itself. A couple more. Brian Callahan, he's only 40, former Bengals offensive coordinator, credited, given a lot of success for the development of Joe Burrow. He's also worked with Derek Carr and Matt Stafford as a quarterbacks coach. So now he'll try to work some magic with Will Levis. Good luck with that. He's got his father on the staff, the longtime offensive line coach Bill Callahan. He'll coach the Titans O-line. Finally, in Washington, Dan Quinn, who I believe never sat down in the booth as the Dallas defensive coordinator, took the Falcons to the Super Bowl as head coach. Mike, let's start out with all these changes. Jim Harbaugh inherits Justin Herbert there, but they've got some holes, and we were talking about this the other day. It's not a good defense over there.
So they're also different. Every team has a different perspective on how to, responsibility of the head coach and the impact that they can have in personnel or on the field, et cetera. And with all the assistant coaches on a team, we had 11, I think, and now they have like 25 to 30 for crying out loud. But
They
I
don't
think
have that many, do they? Maybe.
well, no, they do. They do 25. Yes, they do. Literally count them. Just about every team has at least 25. And so what's happened is over the years, if you are a coordinator and you get hired, a young guy gets hired, chances are your decision making is going to be a very limited role in terms of just the team and some of the things that happen. You may not have control of the other side of the ball from what you do. In other words, if you're a great defensive coordinator, you get hired, you need to still have your hand in the mix with the defense, and they hire a coordinator. You may not or may or may not have a whole lot of input to what they're doing. So, and then personnel, you may not have anything to say about any of the personnel. They just make the changes. Here, you play this guy or that guy. So it goes for that to the extremes like Harbaugh will have a say on everything, that he wants to have a say in. And so really, how much can you affect the success of a team when you have such limited input? You know what I mean? So, and that's why Detroit for so many years, they just never changed how they did business. And they finally did when they hired Danny, and they changed some things inside. So in a long-winded version, most of these young coordinators don't really have much of a chance, unless they just inherit a lot of talent and they do a good job with it. Like I think what happened down in Houston was exceptional. That doesn't happen very often. And right away he gets marked as, the up and coming guy that's going to be in the league for a long time as a head coach.
Yeah, yeah. D'Amico Ryan's the exception rather than the rule. Now, when you replaced Dick Vermeil, you had a lot of time in the college ranks and had some seasoning in the NFL as an assistant, and obviously the great job as coordinator for the Rams Super Bowl team. But what were some of the challenges for you as no matter how much maybe you prepare for a head coaching job, it's different when you step into that chair. There's a lot of stuff that have little to do with the actual football, the X's and O's as a head coach. They come at you from all directions, don't they?
They do, but before I even got to that point, I'd been around long enough and seen enough head coaches in both college and the NFL to know that I didn't want to be told what I had, who I had to play, who were going to, all that kind of stuff. All I wanted was a right of veto. You know what I mean? So that's why the contract took so long to do, because I told my agent, I said, look, I want to have that control over the personnel. Not that I want to pick the guys necessarily. I just don't want somebody to get a guy that we really doesn't fit, that we don't want, and pay him a lot of money. And that happens all the time. And then try and tell me that we got to play that guy. That's not going to work for me. So, in essence, they gave me the same authority as a general manager. And then John Shaw came down and said, listen, even though you, in essence, are the general manager, we're going to give the job to Charlie, or give the title to Charlie. And because he deserves it. He's done a great job here. I said, yeah, that's great. I think that's wonderful. I don't want anybody to know that's the situation anyway. I just prefer that just John and I know that, right? So, and that's kind of how it went until the end. Then things got kind of different. But like you said, what you can't prepare for is how involved you are in issues off the field with coaches and players. The other thing that shocked me, though, Jim, was after a few months, the realization that the game means something different to me than a lot of the coaches. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think it's that way out there all the time, where I love the game of football. I committed my life to this thing, and it's not that meaningful to all those coaches. Now, enough of them there are, but just varying degrees. And I thought we all looked at it the same way, which was pretty naive.
Also, again, stuff that have nothing to do with getting a team ready to play or whatever. Just the basically daily media obligations, and you were great to deal with. And sometimes we never knew what you were going to say. But in the business, Mike, we referred to you as good copy. You were good copy, but dealing with the media was something new. I remember when you were the wide receivers coach for the early St. Louis Rams. I think I might have been the only guy that interviewed you in 2 years. You preferred to stay behind the scenes.
You were, and I just felt like that was my job. And I went to Washington and coached quarterbacks here for Norv. And I left after 2 years, of course, come back and we win the Super Bowl. And this reporter, this gal that was their beat writer over there, she grabbed me down at the Super Bowl. She said, "You weren't at the Redskins." I said, "No, I was." She said, "I never saw you." I said, "Well, that's a good thing." She said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "My job was to help Norv and be in the background. I didn't do any interviews at Washington, not
Wait a
one."
minute, Mike. This gal was this
She,
woman,
she was the beat writer there.
and she did not at when you were at the Super Bowl with the Rams. She did not recall that you were on the
Yeah,
Washington staff coaching Trent Green for 2
yeah,
years.
she challenged the fact that I was at Washington. She said, "No, you weren't. No, you weren't there." I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but I
Did
was."
you?
We
Or
looked it
did
up.
you finally confess and say, "Okay, yep, no, I wasn't there. I lied."
No, I said, "Just look it up." I mean, I remember seeing her there all the time, going into Norv's office and talking to Norv and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But she was just insisted that I wasn't there because she couldn't remember me. I said, "Well, it's a good thing. I've done my job then."
How'd you? I mean, how did you approach the media? I mean, dealing with the media in your head
In the Washington or as a head
in
coach?
St. Louis when you were head coach.
Jim, I always felt like I was going to try to be as honest as I could without revealing anything that would be negative on the team, etc. I just felt like you guys worked hard. You deserve to know. And I just did not want to mislead anybody or injuries and all that sort of thing. I was very honest about it. If I didn't care if it got out there early in the week that so and so was injured, not wait till Wednesday so the opponent doesn't have the chance to prepare, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, Mike he used to come down. Used to come down to the media room, visit us. I never dealt with a coach that I think, and most of the coaches were great to deal with. Dick Vermeil was a treat, obviously, but Mike, you were the never was around a coach like you. You really made an attempt to kind of get to know at least the main riders that were around. A lot. Myself, the columnist. You remember Steve Cordy and RB
Yeah.
Falls. You made an attempt to get to know all of us, which was very interesting. Now, Jim Harbaugh, what are you expecting out of him in San Diego? L.A. I'm still calling him San Diego. In L.A.
That's okay. I'll call him San Diego still. I think the biggest thing for an organization is to have and I know it's a tired saying, but a culture change, and he'll do that immediately. The whole approach with the energy that he brings. If you've ever met Jim or been around him for 10 minutes, he's like the ever-ready bunny. He just goes. He just goes and goes. He's got high energy, high enthusiasm, and you can't help but get caught up in that. And I think that'll really have an effect on that organization and how they do things. He'll be involved in everything, and it'll be done right. I think he'll have success this year, a lot of success. I think they will end up being in the playoffs. The thing that's hurt them in the past defensively is they've been so bad, and they had a defensive head coach. So that was hard. That was really hard. And I think all the details will be addressed. All the things will be accounted for and give them a good chance to win. Now, are they talented enough? Probably not yet, but eventually they will be. The quarterback, you know what I think of him. The two receivers are gone, but that's okay. They had a nice pick last year, and there'll be enough there for them to play good football and win games.
Yeah, Mike, last year you made it very clear on several of our editions of Talking Football how much you thought of Justin Herbert. Now, personnel moves in the offseason. Obviously, there's a lot between free agency and trades in the drafts. I'll just run down some of them, and Mike will hit some highlights here. 49ers, they always seem to go for it. Pick up Leonard Floyd, $10 million a year contract, 39 and a half sacks for him the last 4 years. Bears acquired one of the Chargers wide receivers that they lost in Keenan Allen. Obviously, they draft Caleb Williams to play quarterback, number 1 overall. The Ravens signed Derrick Henry. We saw him last night against Kansas City. Atlanta, big move. They signed Kirk Cousins and also draft the University of Washington quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. That'll be interesting. Another very interesting quarterback situation. The Steelers added both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Arizona draft Marvin Harrison Jr., get some receiver help. Denver's going with a drafted quarterback, Bo Nix. Texans sign edge rusher Danielle Hunter. Odell Beckham Jr. added to an already talented Miami receiver core. Jets assigned left tackle Tyron Smith, 8-time Pro Bowler with Dallas. He's 33, so they're hoping he has something left. The Commanders with new coach Dan Quinn, quarterback Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall pick. And what I think maybe the biggest offseason thing, Mike, Aaron Donald retires with the Rams. How is that going to change the Rams? He not only the best defensive player in the league, maybe arguably the best player in the league the last few years.
Well, I think the leadership and the toughness, he just kind of put them on their back on defense. You talk about a culture change, and they took on his personality, so to speak, and that'll be hard for him. But they brought all these young players in last year that I didn't think could make the roster, and they end up playing with him and playing well. I mean, he did. It might have been the best job of coaching in the league last year.
Yeah, we talked last year several times about Sean McVay and what a very good hire that was for the Rams. As much as St. Louisans still a lot of us still detest the Rams for leaving St. Louis. You got to give them credit for the McVay hire. Donald was double teamed so often, 331 times in passing situations. Teams won't have to do that, but you're right. The Rams, they seem like they always seem to come up with answers, but boy, this will be a big one to keep their defense going like it did last year without Aaron Donald.
They'll play, and they won't be quite as good because of him, because it puts guys in one-on-one situations because everybody's trying to account and double team him. But I think the 49ers, you're talking about getting an edge rusher, that defense, I thought, and then we went over this last year, and I know it's sound like a broken record here, but they underachieved so much throughout the year on defense with the talent they had.
Mm-hmm.
And they got another edge rusher, like the two that they had weren't good enough, or another pass rusher. So, they're doing everything they can to get it right, and you got to love it. Whenever there's a weakness, they're on it. They're plugging that hole in the dike immediately with something. And I think they're probably the most proactive and talented teams in the league, and John Lynch gets all that credit.
Yeah. We mentioned Atlanta and Steelers, the quarterback situation. Atlanta, very interesting. They signed Kirk Cousins, yet they draft Michael Penix Jr. What do you think of that? That puzzled a lot of people, but maybe it gives you time to develop the young quarterback.
Of course it does. To me, it's perfect. It's the right way to do it. You have an accomplished quarterback that's won a lot of games, gives you an opportunity to get the change in the culture the way you want as a new head coach, get everything going in that direction. And for a couple of years, and at the same time, you're bringing along the future of the organization, if he makes it, he's going to be there 10 years anyway, So, yeah, I think it's absolutely sound and right the way they did that, instead of just grabbing straws, getting a guy, and hopefully you get a second guy. Because number 2 is going to play during the season 70% of the time for length. Yeah. It's just the way the league is.
I thought it was very, very good. Unfailing rule of the league. Yeah, you're always going to see the backups. Now, how about the Steelers situation? A little bit different there. You have Russell Wilson, who wasn't really a fit in Denver, and Justin Fields, who really struggled early in his career, showed some flashes last year. I'm sure Fields wants to start. How do you look at that situation?
I think Russell Wilson, the danger for the Steelers is just keeping him healthy. At his age, he's got this calf problem now. If he's healthy, they'll win. He's just what they need. A guy that's not going to screw it up, make good throws, get the ball downfield with some of those receivers, let him play great defense and rush the football. He's what they need, really. Justin Fields, just not a fan. I'm just not a fan.
You made that pretty clear. You went viral, I guess, his rookie year. Russell Wilson takes a lot of sacks, Mike. He holds on to the ball.
Yes.
But and that has to worry you. You're talking about the injury, the possibility of injury with him.
Yeah, he avoids a lot of sacks. Obviously, some of that has to do with how many attempts you're throwing the ball down the field. You get up more of a quick up-tempo passing game for him, and it really goes well. That's kind of what he did at Seattle, was there are bombs away there, and he throws such a great deep ball. I'm not worried about him and how he plays, and so I'd rather take sacks and interceptions anytime. So I think though the Achilles heel for them is the offensive line to some extent right now. They've been trying to get it right in the draft. They drafted offensive linemen that I really like, and they've changed their offensive coordinator, right? So I think they'll be much more stable in everything that they do. I just thought last year at times watch them, I couldn't figure out what they were thinking on offense. Why?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And guys didn't know who to block sometimes. And I think they're going to get grounded and solidified. And this is a big year for Mike. And Mike Tomlin went through that last year and the year before. They're just not. This is a big, big year for Mike Tomlin, and I think he knows that. I saw somewhere that he played his guys in the preseason a lot, getting them ready to go, and I think that's a healthy thing.
That's Mike Martz. I'm Jim Thomas. You're listening to Talking Football on ClaibsOnline. We'll be right back.
Munganast St. Louis Acura has the all-electric Acura ZDX. The ZDX can go up to 313 miles on a single charge, and the DC fast charging lets the ZDX gain up to 80 miles in just 10 minutes. When you lease an Acura ZDX, you can save up to $7,500 with a federal EV lease credit. Or you can buy the new ZDX and get 0.9% for up to 72 months. Come on in to Munganast St. Louis Acura and take a look at the new ZDX for yourself.
We're back on Talking Football. Mike Martz, he's the handsome one there, if you're watching. And I'm Jim Thomas. I'm the old guy over here on the left. We're on ClaibsOnline. We're going on Friday this week. I just want to let you know that starting next week and throughout the season, you can listen to us on Thursdays. We'll be posted online on Thursdays. You can get all the dish from Mike and myself on ClaibsOnline. We're excited to be working with Mike Claiborne and Joe Roderick. And now it's time, Mike, for one of my favorite segments, and the listeners last year got a lot of great feedback about this. It's time to Ask Mike. And we start, Mike, appropriately with a regular from last year, Marissa from D.C. We get primarily questions locally, but we get them from all over the country. Mike, I think we even got one from Australia last year, which is not in the U.S. Anyway, Marissa from D.C., she always comes out of left field. She asked a couple Taylor Swift questions, and she's coming out of left field again now. She wants to know, did you play much golf over the summer, and what's your golf game like?
It's awful. I just played yesterday. I have not played. I had a torn meniscus. I had a kidney removal on my left side. A good portion that was taken out, and I had a lot of medical issues that just kind of came up that restricted my ability to play. But I'm over all that. I'm back on. I'm off IR. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you live right on a par 3, don't you?
You're right. I sure do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's painful to watch these guys play all the time and not being able to go out and swing the club.
If I was playing, I think your patio or your deck out there, you might have to put a screen up.
Well, we've got trees there to protect us, but there is a guy that was able to sneak it around the trees and hit the house. He's the only guy that was able to do that in the 2 years that we've been here.
Did you yell at him?
No. He hit I guess a shank or a slice shank, if you will, and it actually bent around the trees, came back in and hit the basement wall down below there, and that was remarkable. I felt like that had to be physically impossible, but he's able to accomplish it.
Yeah, I like to, when I played, and I really don't play anymore, I like to play where it was cheap and there were a few witnesses, because I hit some weird shots. I once one hopper off a car grill at the old North Shore in North County, and the guy honked, he gave me the finger, and then he drove on. Here's another one.
Jim, let me just tell you my best golf story, though, with Jim Hannafin.
Uh-oh.
That was we were just going to camp, and so we're in the office, and I had been there all summer, so I was caught up. So I got a neighbor. I said, well, let's just go play golf at 10 o'clock here, because we're going to start meeting with everybody tomorrow and all that. And Jim's supposed to be in the office with everybody getting things ready, right? So I tee off on number 1 at Fox Run there, and they're parallel. 1 and 2 go like this. And there's a group on the green over here as I'm teeing off going that way, right? Well, I go to swing. I rupture a disc in my lower back.
On the swing.
On the swing. When I come down, it pops. I can feel it. And I pull out of it, and I shank the ball. It goes 90 degrees and hits this guy right between the shoulder blades on the green.
Oh, no.
Oh, he goes, oh, he turns around, he looks over, he goes, I might have known that was you, it was Hannafin.
You hit Hannafin?
I said, what are you doing out here? You're supposed to be working. I just grumbled along, you know.
Oh,
that was the end of golf for me for a while.
Bud Hanny, he just shrugged it off and kept going, huh?
Oh no, but that story grew and grew and grew and got bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like
a
grenade at him, you know.
Of course it did. Okay, here's Ben from St. Louis. He wants to know, Mike, what do you think of quarterbacks taking shotgun snaps on the goal line in short yardage situations?
It's all formation oriented down there. If you're going to do that, I don't like it. I've never liked it. When you're in the shotgun,
it drives me nuts.
It delays. It has less deception to the running game. The ball gets in the hand of the back much faster. There's just a lot of reasons to be underneath the center down there. And I think college football, and I said this before, people get mad, but I think it's ruined the game for a while here. When they're up at Oregon, they start running plays as fast as you can and just wear people out and wear people down. And that's how you play and how you win. That's just so people are very simple, basically. They don't do a whole lot. They would just spread everybody else out and wear down the pass rush so you don't pressure it, you know? So it's just kind of simpleton to some extent, but I hate it. I hate it when I see a team on the 2-yard line in a shotgun. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I'm so glad. I kind of figured that's where you would go with that. You can ask Mike every week here on Talking Football on ClaibsOnline. You can just DM me or send a reply on Twitter at jtom1 on Twitter, or email me, and that's jtom, JTHOM 72 at outlook.com. Mike, before we get into the week 1 games, I want to mention Steven Jackson last night, Thursday night. I had the privilege of presenting him at the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Mike, you're a member of the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. It's a great thing that they do, one, to have a Hall of Fame with the great tradition of sports we have in St. Louis. But it was good to see Steven. Of course, he had the 8 straight 1,000-yard rushing seasons, the Rams' all-time leading rusher. Mikey's got a son headed to Oregon State to be a wide receiver, running back. So time flies, doesn't it?
He's such a sweetheart. He's such a good person. I just felt so bad that we got him when we did, because we were on the downslide and they were obviously getting ready to move the team. So you can't pick up free agents. And at the time I left, he was just getting going. And consequently, after I left, the team was going to stay down purposely. So this poor guy's on a team that's going nowhere and he's carrying the load of everything. You'd like to see him play on a team that's really trying to win, basically, and like the 49ers or somebody like that.
Yeah, a remarkable player, Steven Jackson, on some unremarkable teams. He's got 4 children now. He runs a barber school, so he trains young kids to cut hair. I asked him if they had a senior discount. I might, get a little trim roll.
Think about what he did in those years when he's it. That's it. He's the guy, and they don't have anything else, right?
Yeah.
Bad offensive line, the whole ball of wax there. I mean, he was their hope.
Yeah, it was bad football. That's Mike Martz. We'll be right back.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
We're back. And we're into week 1. The season opened with a bang last night, Michael. 27-20. Kansas City wins at Arrowhead over Baltimore. What a matchup. Rematch of the AFC title game. yeah, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson at quarterback, both are two-time MVPs. But I got to tell you, as good as Lamar Jackson is, and he's plenty good, Mahomes and Kansas City, there is kryptonite. He's fell to 1-5 against them. He's 60-19 against everybody else, but just 1-5 now. Mike, what did you like and not like about that game last night?
I think it's probably the best Chiefs team I've seen in many years. It's the most complete team defensively. The coordinator, he's got them intimidated, and this new open edge football where tight ends aren't in line and all that stuff. You can't change your protection much. He does. If you don't change formations on him and change personnel groups, he's got you. He's going to control the game. Get them all up on their bluff, then come out of there. And he does that to coordinators. It's a hit or miss deal for offense. I think defensively they did a great job, but offensively, it's the first time from the Chiefs I saw a real powerful, consistent running game throughout the game, which really befuddled, Baltimore. They had a difficult time. They just kept pounding 4 and 5 yards in there and did them short third down throws, and they protected Mahomes. Both teams, I thought both teams are really, really good. Like you said, after the game, they'll see them again in the playoffs. But I was really impressed with Baltimore defensively. I thought they did a really good job too. Could have gone either way.
Yeah. What do you think about that ending? Jackson missed a couple throws down there in the end zone. Then he hits Isaiah Likely, who had a great game, kind of a young emerging tight end, and it looks like a touchdown. But the great camera work, they have when they had this these primetime games on NBC, they have about 1 million cameras, and his toe was on the line.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's the way it goes. There's a couple times when it showed from the end zone where he had the tight end going down in the middle of the field with no safety help, a linebacker, and he took off and ran with it twice. And it's, oh man, when he looks at the tape, he's going to not like that. He just got a little shaken up with that defense, and they'd show him blitzing and bail out of there. And he just got kind of sped up in his reads, and he finally saw him and got him.
Yeah. Steve Spagnuolo, one of your successors as Rams head coach, continuing to do a great job orchestrating that Kansas City defense. Lamar Jackson running a lot. He had over 100 yards. He's moved into third all time for quarterback rushers. He has a chance, probably a pretty good chance, to pass Michael Vick as the all-time rusher. He makes me nervous as much as he runs, and he wasn't sliding last night. He was leaning into guys.
I just don't think they really knew what to do with that defense. I think with that defense, you had to take Derrick Henry, get a couple tight ends in there, and just make them bleed a little bit, Like get some out of all that junk stuff that they do, all the blitzes and the offsets, and you do it. There's so many things that you can do to it, but having that big back and pound them and keep Mahomes off the field, I was a little surprised that they didn't go into that direction. Last year when the Chiefs beat them, they didn't run the ball at all.
Very surprising. Yep. Most surprising thing to me about that AFC title game.
I thought they would have put more on Derrick Henry in this game, to be honest with you, than what they did. And I think now they probably will. He's still, you got to count for him. That big beast. He runs in there. He takes them all with him,
Yeah. Obviously, Baltimore's going to win a lot of games. A couple more things on this game before we start to look ahead and preview some of the games here in week one. The Kansas City offense, remember last year, they had so much problems with their wide receivers, led the league with 25 drops, but Rashee Rice looks really good. Hollywood Brown isn't even playing yet. He's not going to be out for long, but he has a dislocated shoulder. But that rookie, Xavier Worthy, he scored a couple touchdowns, one on a reverse and one kind of an improv on a deep ball. Looks like they're going to have some juice in the passing game this year.
Yeah, there's lots of energy. They don't make mistakes. The routes are really good. And of course, Kelsey shows up when he needs to. But I think those wide receivers, just imagine if there were some drops by those wideouts last night, they wouldn't have won the game.
No, they wouldn't. And Mike, I always like watching Andy Reid. He reminds me a lot of you. He's very creative offensively, and he'll do a lot of stuff formation-wise.
I think you have to nobody does it really. And defensively, you just kind of take control of things. You can get guys to check out of defenses by formations. That's one of the reasons why we did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Last thing, Mike, it kind of drove me nuts. I remember back when you were coach, one year they made illegal contact a point of emphasis, and they called it for maybe the first 3-4 weeks, and they forgot about it. They went back to mugging receivers, especially your wide receivers. Now this year, a point of emphasis is having that tackle on the line of scrimmage. They call that 3 times on them on Kansas City, on Baltimore in the first series, 5 times total in the game. I got to say, though, Ronnie Stanley, he was called for 3 of them. I believe he's the left tackle. Just move up a foot, What you think of all that? It was crazy.
I think it was wrong officiating. I think it was very poor officiating. I think you got to communicate that with both teams before the game. This is a point of emphasis. You got to get you guys up now. And the first time, I think you got to warn them. You just got to warn them. Tell them, hey, listen, you're too loose here. You got to hug up. And then if he doesn't do it, then you flag him. I don't know if there's any communication with the kid or not.
Yeah. Supposedly they didn't warn him before the first penalty. Mike, I think after that happened 3 times in the opening drive, you might have gotten an official's attention, maybe.
Yeah, I think you have to go. I didn't see the tape, but I don't know how egregious it was. I didn't think 2 of them were necessarily
right.
Something that you would call. There was a hit on Mahomes that, to me, and Julie was that we were watching it together. She said, "Why did they call that?" It was roughing the passer. It was in the 4th quarter and comes off the edge, and he gets the ball out. He hits him here in the chest with his helmet.
Right.
And I mean, that was football, 15, 20 years ago. That's just, how's it? What do you do? I mean, how do you, I don't know. I don't know. The game is, I'm speechless when I saw that. How can that be a penalty?
Referees, I mean, they have a tough job, but yeah.
They put a bubble on the guy back there and just say, tag the bubble and he's sacked then, something like that. I don't know.
Well, a great opener. We know Kansas City will be there in Baltimore at the end, but let's get to week 1 games. Mike, I always thought that there's no more week in the season that's so as unpredictable as opening week, really the first couple 3 games. Any keys to getting a team ready for week 1?
I think, what we always did is we took the first game or 2 and really prepared in the off season. So the guys were really locked into those first few games, the opponent, particularly if it's somebody that was returning the staff and all that stuff. And
so you're in the OTAs and you're doing a little work on the season opener.
Always. In camp, part of practice, we've already game planned for them. So we're
in April or May, huh?
And when we come back to camp. So when camp starts,
training camp, okay.
And our team drills and stuff, we'll be running plays. The players don't know this, that we're preparing for that first week or 2. That might be new from last year, but unbeknownst to them, it's stuff that we want to use in that opener, those kinds of things. So we really work hard at studying the coordinators if they're new and what they do and coming up with stuff. And I just think that opener is such a pivotal game for the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tonight we have a Friday night game in Brazil. It's the first, Friday night game in the NFL. This is Green Bay versus Philly in Sao Paulo, Brazil. First Friday night game since 1970. Mike, I was the slowest running back in the Public High League in 1970. What were you doing in 1970?
1970, I was playing junior college football at Mesa College, and I was a tight end. Catching passes, number 85 on the field, number 1 in your heart.
There you go. So a rare Friday night game. What do you think about playing overseas games? I know you didn't with the Rams. Did you ever coach?
Yeah, we played over in England. Was in Chicago. We played Buccaneers over there. We went as late as possible. We got in, had our meetings, practiced, and went and played the game. We didn't spend any time over there. I think that's the way you have to do it. I think that's the best way of doing it. So
I think Belichick would do it that way with New England. A great matchup. First NFL game in South America. Philadelphia now Started 10-1 last year, really sputtering at the end, 1-6. They've added Saquon Barkley, no Jason Kelsey at center. Green Bay with Jordan Love really came on last year. Very young, skill player. Players all around Jordan Love. They should be that much better. Give us your rundown on this game.
I think it's what's pivotal is the offensive coordinator for Philadelphia and what changes or what they'll be like. Because last year they didn't know who to block in the passing game. That poor quarterback is running for his life. The offensive line was really good, but they just were turning guys loose all the time. I just think Jordan Love in the last 4 or 5 games of the season was off the charts. He's out of his mind. I think that whole thing, that momentum from last year, I think it's going to carry over. I know everybody thinks that Philly will win this game probably, but I would take Green Bay in this game. I just think that they got it clicking right now.
Yeah, Philadelphia is a 2.5-point favorite. You're taking Green Bay, correct?
2 points, yeah. I'd take Green Bay for sure. Yeah,
I'm going to take Green Bay too. I like you. I was really impressed with Jordan Love. Now we're going to go through all these games, but we'll just have you pick out a few, highlight a few, but just to run them down for our listeners. The noon games: Pittsburgh at Atlanta, Kirk Cousins versus Russell Wilson; Arizona at Buffalo. Damar Hamlin, this will be the safety for Buffalo, his first start since he had that cardiac arrest at the end of the 2022 season. Buffalo, no Stephon Diggs. Tennessee at Chicago, Caleb Williams' debut. So that'll be very interesting to see. New England at Cincinnati, no Belichick. Jacoby Brissett keeping the seat warm for Drake May, the young quarterback. Really good matchup here. Houston at Indy. C.J. Stroud versus Anthony Richardson. Richardson, talented quarterback, missed a lot of time last year. Jacksonville at Miami. Carolina at New Orleans. Minnesota with Sam Darnold. You know, J.J. McCarthy, season-ending knee injury. So Darnold at quarterback for the Vikings. They're at the Giants. The late games. Vegas at the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh's debut. Denver at Seattle. Bo Nix is starting at quarterback for Denver. Denver has missed the playoffs 8 straight years. That's just an amazing stat to me. Dallas at Cleveland. This will be one of the marquee games here. And Washington at Tampa Bay. Jaden Daniels' debut at quarterback for Washington. The Sunday night game is a banger. The Rams at Detroit. This is a rematch of first-round playoff game. And then the Monday night game, the New York Jets at San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers returns. He made it only 4 plays. Let's start with that game, Mike, and kind of work our way back. Jets at San Francisco. San Francisco, a 4.5-point favorite. Number 1 scoring offense last year. We thought Brandon Ayuk was going to leave at wide receiver. He ended up re-signing late. And like I said, hopefully Aaron Rodgers will last more than 4 plays this time, huh?
Well, I think they've retooled some things in the offensive line too, which is huge. And what they're doing on offense has got to change. So, you know, when you have that good a defense and you got Aaron Rodgers, it's really hard to not say that they've got a chance of winning this thing. Other than the fact that San Francisco's such a good team and it's at San Francisco. Yeah. I think it'll be a much tighter game than people would think. I think Aaron Rodgers, if they were really good in the offensive line, I'd say that they will beat San Francisco because they're so good on defense. Mm-hmm. But because of the offensive line and the issues that they've had there in the past, I don't think they've addressed it. I don't think that they've fixed it. I think that 49ers will win it.
Yeah, the Jets defense held them in a lot of games, even though their quarterback play was terrible last year. You think Rodgers will have much rust?
No, I don't think I have any rust. My biggest issue is just protecting it, you know, and because they couldn't do that for the quarterback last year for any quarterback. As we saw in his first 2 snaps, he got hit. Until they prove that they're going to be good enough in the offensive line, it's hard to pick them over a good team.
Yeah. That's the Monday night game, and I like Mike. I like San Francisco in that game. Now, the Sunday night game, we mentioned no Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford versus Jared Goff. I think the Lions are kind of a trendy pick. They were so much fun to watch last year, finishing 12-5. one of our they have like 6 St. Louis products. They could be like St. Louis's adopted team. We mentioned the tight end many times on Talking Football last year. Laporta, St. Louis kid, over on the east side. Jamison Williams is another St. Louisan talented receiver. They're expecting him to step into the number 2 role at wideout behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, and we'll see what happens in this game. Like I said, it was a great first round playoff game last year. The Lions won 24-23. Mike, you really became an admirer of Detroit last year, didn't you? And you know Dan Campbell, right?
From the get-go, Danny played for me. Yeah, he played for me, and I know who he is and what he's about. Things are going to be done right. These guys are always going to be tough, physical. You're going to play with a great deal of intensity. It's in Detroit. It's hard to not pick Detroit in this one, although I know the Rams will be very, very good, with the 2 wideouts that they got. But there's just too much firepower at Detroit right now. The running backs they have. It's the best offensive line in the league.
Yes.
The Achilles heel has always been for Detroit is the secondary, the corners. They've been bad. Mm-hmm. And they know that. They've addressed it in the offseason. Assuming that's been repaired, I'm going to pick Detroit.
I'm with you there. I'm going to pick Detroit. A late game, a great early season matchup. Dallas at Cleveland. Cleveland's a 2.5-point favorite. These betting lines are from ESPN that we're throwing out here. Cleveland finished 11-6 despite some, not some, a lot. They started 5 quarterbacks is what I'm trying to say last year, but their defense was so good. Dallas's season won't be decided till we see what happens in the playoffs. They've had so many playoff disappointments. I think the pressure's on McCarthy. I'd be interested in what you think about that, Mike, but this will be a fun one.
There's so much negative stuff in the media about Dallas right now for whatever reason. Some was just smoking stuff, but I think that Cleveland's such a good football team. They've always been a great defense, and they'll be real good this year. And even though they don't have the runner back, the quarterback is going to show up finally, I think.
And Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun, yeah, he's got to have that. If he doesn't, he's done in this league. I think. He's had too many opportunities, and I just think that they'll beat Dallas. I really do.
So you like Cleveland? This is one I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to pick Dallas. Dallas very good in openers over the years. They have one of the best. They're like 40-23 or something in openers.
Is Jerry in those 40 years? Probably Jerry's been able to arrange for the openers to be in Dallas. I would imagine.
I'm sure they've had a lot of them. Okay, Houston and Indy. This is a fascinating game. Houston had such a great season last year under DeMeco Ryans. They've added Stephon Diggs to some wide receivers, even you and I didn't know much about, that turned out to be great for the Texans. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and C.J. Stroud. What a rookie year he had. This game's at Indy. Houston is actually favored by 3. I think there's only 2 games this week where the visiting team is favored. This is one of them. Mike, how do you see this one?
I think Indy's banged up a little bit. They're short some players.
Yeah.
I know they picked up a running back. For the life of me, I can't remember who it was now down in Houston, but that's the one thing they needed was a big-time runner. C.J. Stroud and that group, they just do such a good job. I can't see them not winning up there.
Mm-hmm. So you're taking Houston. I'm going to take Houston as well. Mike, let's pick out a couple more before we call it a day here. Any of the other games that catch your eye that as interesting matchups?
No, the the Charger thing with the Raiders, that'll be interesting to me because I'm really excited to see the personality of the Chargers in their opener and how Harbaugh is going to affect that team and how they play and discipline, intensity, and all that. I think there'll be a major change. It's going to be fun to watch that.
In Vegas, Gardner Minshew, right? Is he their quarterback? So
people can't like him for some reason. They have a hard time.
I'm one of them.
Up to him, but he's just all he does is play good.
Yeah.
in the past, I'm going to assume that they fixed some things on defense there for the Chargers, but I just think I just think they'll be a really disciplined, intense football team. Too much for the Raiders.
Yeah. All right. So you like Chargers?
I like the Chargers. Yeah.
I like Chargers as well. Okay. One more, Mike. I'm going to go. Where is it here? As I look at my notes, Minnesota at the Giants. You like Sam Darnold?
I do, but they could bring the third team to New York and beat them. I mean, you could just. What was the traveling team for the Globetrotters? What do they call them?
The Washington Generals.
The Generals. The Generals could go down there and play them and beat them. I just don't think much of the Giants.
With Red Klotz as head coach.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I don't like the quarterback. I don't like anything about him, to be honest with you. So
I didn't like Daniel Jones coming out. And this is a thing that was underscored with covering you. One of the things you liked in quarterbacks was accuracy.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones comes out of Duke. He's averaging like 54% completion rate. How is that possible in today's game with so many short passes? So, yeah, I've never liked Jones. And now Saquon Barkley.
He's a big guy who can run, which I'm not sure where in your process of evaluating quarterbacks that should actually be. But he must have pictures on somebody somehow.
That's Mike Martz. This has been a great to get the season going, talking football. We'll be on Thursdays now after this week. It's Friday today, but we'll be on Thursdays after this. Mike, it's been a blast, and we'll talk to you next week.
It'll be fun to see this first week, Jim. Thanks.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.